don't ask for everything you're looking for, right? So when hiring and recruiting, there's a job description and there's everything else outside of the job description. It's impossible to put everything you want in the job description. We did it without compromising also, debate of, hey, these are the steps we need to take, right? And that's, we're able to do that. It depends on situation, but we do have things we can't compromise. I think it's less about hiring the right amount of people and more about having a strong business objective and hiring the right quality of people, right? Companies will always be hiring. There'll always be companies hiring. So it's just a matter of which companies are hiring, which companies manage their bottom line well, which companies hired well, so they know what they're doing when it's time. Right? So we have our standards, right? These are the steps we absolutely need to take. At the same time, we can expedite depending on the situation of the candidate.
Hi all, good morning. So today I have Asad with us, who's a senior recruiter and a talent acquisition leader with over 10 years of experience by filling in roles from the mailroom to the boardroom. He has the ability to leverage over 15 years of experience in solving complex staffing problems and providing hiring managers with solutions to their most challenging needs. So let's welcome Asad on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom. Hi Asad, how are you doing today?
Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing good.
How's your day going so far?
It's going good. It's early, but the week's almost over. So how about you?
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited about the weekend as well. I'll be going to New York for a wedding, so that should be exciting.
Good for you. Good for you.
So I said, would love to understand. Let's just go with the question first. What is the most difficult hiring challenge that you solved for, like someone that you worked with in the past?
The most difficult hiring challenge. So in recruiting, I always feel the most difficult hiring challenges in general are hiring manager expectations and what the market always kind of provides, right? Or what the market says. So, over the last, I don't know how many years, I'd probably say like the biggest challenge, maybe, in the past I worked at a company where we had a very, very old platform from the 80s.
Okay.
Right. And we wanted to keep that platform. We needed some developers who still worked on that platform. So the biggest challenge, I think that was it because nobody used that platform ever, right? I ended up finding a university that still uses it. They're finishing on the project, so I just brought some folks over. But yeah, I think, it's managers not understanding what the market is, right? So this technology is outdated, or I want 15 years of experience, and this technology has only been out for like 3 years, right? So it's just, it's marrying those two expectations.
That makes sense. I think I'd love to understand your perspective. Usually, when job descriptions or JDs are being created, they have this ideal candidate persona that they would want to fit in the role. Seems like more like a unicorn, just because they have so many characteristics that they might not even be able to match. So, how do you make sure you create a JD specifically that helps you find the right fit in terms of skills, but it doesn't expect too much from a candidate as well?
Yeah, job descriptions are an art in themselves. I find something I'm not very good at. But you know, it's important to keep things. So in job descriptions, I would tell managers, don't ask for everything you're looking for, right? So when hiring and recruiting, there's a job description and there's everything else outside of the job description. It's impossible to put everything you want in the job description. So generally when you hire, if you get somebody who has 60, 70, 80% of what you're looking for, that's what you put in the job description, right? Like, hey, if this candidate has this, I'm good, let's just do it, right? Versus getting that unicorn, what you said, right? Like you don't want a job description that shows a unicorn because you're not going to get any inbound, right? So,
That's true. Thank you for sharing that perspective, Asad. So, Asad, we'd love to understand where you're currently working, what your company does, and what your role is within the company.
yeah, so I work with a company called Redis. We are an open source NoSQL database. And I am in talent acquisition here at Redis, right? So we're hiring like crazy. It's a good time. Sometimes I think it's more open positions than I want, but it's all right. It's a good problem to have. We're hiring across the board: marketing, finance, accounting, HR, product, engineering, developer relations. So name it, we're probably hiring for it globally.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. And I'd love to understand what is the process within your company like when it comes to hiring the right candidates? Like a lot of candidates these days don't stay on the market for too long. Usually, by the time a company might get back to them, they might have another offer that they might have accepted. So, how does your company, for instance, make sure that the process is efficient, but then again, you're not compromising on the quality of candidates as well?
Yeah, I think so. We have our standards, right? These are the steps we absolutely need to take. At the same time, we can expedite depending on the situation of the candidate, right? So I remember we once had a candidate here at Redis. They had an offer in hand by the time we had the first interview. So we knew she had to make a decision. We got the entire interview process done within 4 business days. Um, and all the way up to offer and everything. Um, I don't ever want to do that again because it was a lot of work, but we did it without compromising also, debate of, hey, these are the steps we need to take, right? And that's, we're able to do that. It depends on situation, but we do have things we can't compromise. We just have to expedite those things, right? And everybody has to be available for that.
That does sound a lot of work, but you managed to secure a person
Yeah,
that might
yeah.
have added value to your company. So good for you. But yeah, that does sound a lot of work. My next question for you, Asad, would be a lot of companies, for example, when the pandemic started and everything, some companies laid off people, but a lot of companies started hiring like crazy. But eventually they realized that they did not need a lot of people. Companies like Carvana, for instance, even Uber, Zoom, laid off a lot of people recently. So how does your company specifically make sure that they hire the right amount of people who they would not need to let go of long term?
Yeah, I think it's less about hiring the right amount of people and more about having a strong business objective and hiring the right quality of people, right? Like, I think what happened, like you mentioned, companies during the pandemic, they laid off a lot of people. I'm gonna use recruiting for example, right? So they laid off a lot of recruiters. All of a sudden, the economy really didn't dip much. You still had a lot of demand. So now you have to hire a lot of people. And because you did that first round of layoffs when you probably could have just waited it out, you were in a hurry and you didn't have a good evaluation process. You brought in bad talent or talent that wasn't a fit. I don't want to say bad talent, right? But talent that wasn't a fit. And that hurt your business objectives now when there is a downturn, right?
Okay, thank
So
you
that's
for
all.
sharing that.
Yeah.
No, no, that helps. I think last question would be, Asad, a lot of people say that the economy might be going into recession soon. Wall Street recently laid out an article which spoke about it. So we'd love to understand from a recruiter's perspective, how do you think recruitment will change within different companies during the recession period?
Yeah, so I'm dating myself. I was around recruiting back in 2008 when we had that economic downturn, right? I was at a staffing agency, and I'll be honest, like from a recruiting perspective, it was actually a good time for recruiting if you knew what you were doing. Like you're able to control the process a little bit more. Companies will always be hiring. There'll always be companies hiring. So it's just a matter of which companies are hiring, which companies manage their bottom line good well, which companies hired well. So they know what they're doing when it's time, right? So sometimes doing when it's good, you save when it's good, and then you have that going when it's bad, right? So um, from a recruiting perspective, it'll be tough for some folks, but companies will always be hiring. And I remember 2008, and it actually wasn't a bad time recruiting in 2008. So
Yeah, okay. No, I
yeah,
think you definitely saw the hardest period when the economy crashed completely. So it's great to hear that things worked out for you. But other than that, thank you so much for coming on the show.
yeah,
Congratulations on your move and sharing about your wonderful talent acquisition experience, what you've learned along the way, and how you've helped a lot of staffing companies or companies that you currently work with solve difficult hiring challenges. It was an absolute pleasure learning from you.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.